Hi, this is Mark. Congratulations. You have found this amazingly awesome show. Chances are you're listening to it right now on whether it's iTunes or Stitcher Radio or some other mobile app that allows you to stream this amazingly awesome show to your ear holes. And I can't stress how awesomely amazing this show really is. But did you know that you can also catch the latest episode of this show on the Tangibound Network? That's right. Go check out tangiboundnetwork.com. You can look them up and you can listen to it right there. It's even mobile friendly. What more could you ask for? Which means you can pull it up on your iPhone or your Android, even your Windows phone. Yeah, who has one of those? But still, point remains, you can do it. You can do it. Check it out, tangiboundnetwork.com. Listen to this show, the latest episode, every time. Check it out.
Life sucks to the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. Life sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. Life sucks all of the time. Stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
Welcome to the Crazy Life, everyone. My name's Jen. I'm your hostess, and with me, as always, is Brian and Hanno. Hey, guys.
Hello.
Hi.
And welcome to any new listeners, and welcome back to any of our existing listeners. And yeah, been kind of a crazy week, so I'm a little on the tired side. So if I seem kind of out of it, I apologize. Hopefully my co-hosts will definitely pick up any slack that there may be. And, yeah.
There we go. Carrying your water again, like always.
Always. Relying on you guys.
Mm-hmm.
At least I'm here, right? I get points for that. I always get points. You always get points
Always.
to show up.
Yeah.
Always give points for showing up.
Yep.
No, I wouldn't. I don't like to miss the show because it does so much for me, as it does for you listeners, that each one of us gets so much from this show. So just so you know, this is a labor of love for sure for all of us, I'm sure. But I blather on. How is you guys? How are you guys? How is you guys? Yeah, that's yeah.
Hey.
How are you guys? How's your week been?
Hey, Hanno. How you is, Hanno?
You know, you can just abbreviate that down to how's yous.
Yeah.
How's yous?
How's yous?
Yeah. Good to know.
It's like saying au jus, right? It's like, how's yous?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, help save me from this awkward intro.
If you're in Pittsburgh, you could say how's yins.
Yeah, that's true. Yep.
Yeah, so I'm going to come in right hot with a victory for the week.
All right.
Yes.
And it's not, but it hasn't been easy with all the Christmas sales and discounts and extended 48-month interest-free financing, bombarded left and right. I have not bought anything.
Wow.
Nice.
Wow.
But now I'm going to do my Samuel L. Jackson from Pulp Fiction, but it's hard, Ringo.
Yeah, it is.
It's hard, Ringo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is. I've had stuff in the cart. And be like, no, don't need this. Yes, it's only $11 a month for the next 4 years, but like there's a wedding, there's, like It's like, go look at all of your credit card balances.
Right.
Go look at those for a while. Yeah. Get a little perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So I have, that's been it. Other than the only thing I've bought for myself are like books.
Right.
Some Kindle books that came, one of my favorite authors has 2 new books out and a lot of stuff. But I don't have any large purchases. It's been tempting. I'm checking in with Neil all the time.
Yeah.
But that's good though that you're checking in and you're practicing some self-control and
trying to be accountable.
Yeah. Doing all the steps. That's awesome.
Well, plus you shouldn't be buying stuff for yourself anyway because you don't know what Santa's going to bring you.
You never know.
Yeah, I don't think Santa's going to bring me a $1,500 microphone, but hey,
he might. You don't know.
Only $11 a month for 4 years.
Yeah.
Actually, that one was, I think, $19 a month for 4 years.
Ooh.
Well, I tell you what, that's one of the nice things about online shopping for me is some people find it more of an impulse thing. But for me, with online shopping, I can put things in my cart and then I don't buy it right then.
Mm-hmm.
So I go through the motions of shopping and I build my cart and I go through the motions of shopping, but then I don't buy it right away because I'm like, you know what? Let me wait on this. And then I'll wait and I'll go back to my cart and I'll take things out or I'll add things to it. And so I get the feeling of shopping and buying, but I'm not actually buying anything. So
yeah, it's really tough. That's why when I do have some money, I try really hard to stay off of Amazon because if I'm on that website, I'll quickly, evaporate whatever money I had. It'll poof and it'll be gone.
And the dangerous buy now with one click.
Mm.
Oh yeah.
I need to shut that off.
I was going to say I don't even have that enabled. But I've got a wicked long wish list for Amazon, like books and Funko Pops and books to read, books that are art books, Funko Pop stuff, various other stuff. I've found that there's a lot of times if there's just something I'd like to have, I'll just throw it on there. Like I even have a spiralizer, for vegetables on there, and it's more to remind me so that if I'm trying to remember which one I want, I can just go right to my wish list and look, Yeah. But I know that's how a lot of people are. Like they'll go to a bookstore and while they're in the bookstore, they'll just have the Amazon app open basically and they'll just be adding books to their list or their cart right there because Amazon's usually a lot cheaper, but, just doing that doesn't do enough for me though. Like it's not the same as opening, the package and, I have this now. And, it's still because in my head, I'm addicted to the acquiring things. I'm not addicted to the actual buying part. I'm addicted to the having part. So if I don't actually have the tangible thing, it doesn't satisfy the fix.
Yeah. I just like shopping. I just like looking at all the different things and picking things out. And I just, Online shopping is very, very good for me.
Yeah, it's been terrible for me. Because it's got its ups and downs, because, it's great on one hand for introverts, but it's also awful. Because you don't have to push yourself into going into public anymore. You can just jump online and buy.
True.
And that just can kind of feed being an introvert rather than, forcing yourself into social settings a little bit more to try to get, used to that so that you can deal with it easier. But because, I did that for so long. It's like now I have like so little tolerance for stores most of the time. I just want to get in and get out. I don't want to wait. I just,
me too. Now, especially this time of year with the season and the holidays. I mean, it's just rough. It's all around rough. You deal with a whole bunch of people. Most of the time, people are not in the best of moods.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
which I love. I always love how so many people look longingly at Christmas time. It's like, oh, I can't wait for it to be here. And it's it's so great and all this. And then the time actually hits and so many people are just monsters during this time of year. They're rude, they're aggravated all the time, all this kind of stuff, going through stores and different whatnot. And, and then as soon as it's over, you hear so many, so glad it's over, and it's just like, then why do you look so fondly, longingly at it from January, March? It's weird to me, it's because they forget the negative part of it. They're just looking at the other side. And then when it's on them, they're like,
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's, for me, I find a lot more pleasure in the holidays trying to avoid the shopping, the shopping in the malls and stuff, in the stores.
Yeah.
Because if I can focus on the lights, we have a really great, our zoo nearby has an amazing lights display, and that's a lot of fun. I like going to that. Coco, walking around, looking at the lights, doing that whole thing.
Yeah.
That stuff, and a lot of the family stuff, when it's a smaller aspect of family, I really like the intimate family gatherings and stuff. The big ones are amazing as well, but it's just a different dynamic. I can only take a little bit of the big ones.
Yeah.
The smaller ones I can really settle down and enjoy.
Makes sense. Anyway, we totally train wrecked Henno's stuff.
Yeah, we did, didn't we?
Oh, that was good. It was great.
Wrapped it and ran with it.
No, it was perfect.
Yeah.
So how else was the rest of your week since you're not shopping?
Yeah, it's been it's been really great. I like yesterday I took the bus. Even though I got, the car now and I was like, no, I'm still going to take the bus. I'm going to do this. And after work, it was like, okay, I get off at 4:30. The bus comes at 5:35. All right, I can go get on the treadmill for 25 minutes at the gym.
Nice.
And I did. And that just feels really good. It really, it's felt really, really good. Over the weekend, got stuff set up for the window, when the bay window goes in, got everything cleaned up and, it's been really, it was hard. I get videos, YouTube videos for my favorite video game that I've deleted from my iPad.
Right.
And, and I'm watching the videos and they had a huge tournament recently where they had people in New York and the prize money was big. It was like $100,000, which was pretty good. Yeah. It's pretty, and they had teams of, was it teams of 5 or no, it was teams of 7. So, each person's, bringing home over 10K for the winner. And so I was watching the video from it and I enjoyed the video and there's that little part of me that was tempted. I'm like, yeah, but you're getting stuff done. So, why, that kind of thing. And my shopping, the big thing for me is I have to send stuff back home for family. And I know they are completely okay with if I just said, hey, it's there's not a lot coming, but I enjoy it. I enjoy since I don't get to be home with my family. I do enjoy looking for some nice, unique gifts.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so my favorite website right now is Uncommon Goods. And, boy, they have stuff from, inexpensive to really expensive.
Yeah.
And everything in between. And so I had a great time and, everything's getting shipped to my mom, and then she packs it. She actually will wrap them for me and for my family and that kind of thing.
Sense.
So
sure.
that was it. It was good to get that done, okay, because it really hit me. I was like, oh wow, it's December, it's December 2nd. It's, things have to ship.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's what, it was weird.
So
I was the same way. Like my head wasn't really thinking about the time of year that it is, and I was thinking about that today because there's a few things like I want to put on eBay to try to sell. And I was like, I need to get those on because if someone's interested in that for a Christmas gift, they've only got like a week before it starts getting real iffy about things getting there, or 2 weeks, whatever, in a timely fashion. So, yeah.
It comes up quick, for sure. I mean, pretty much once Halloween hits, everything seems to speed up exponentially. It does. And I kind of set myself up because towards the first half of the year, I'm pretty good. But the second half of the year, in July is my birthday. August is my husband's birthday. September's our anniversary. October is Halloween. November is Thanksgiving, and Christmas is December. And so pretty much the first half, not so much. Second half, oh boy. So it's pretty crazy, but it's good stuff. It's good crazy. And just managing through it. I think, like you were saying, Henno, you've got a really good handle on it. And so far, so good. One step at a time and trying to keep perspective on the situation and recognize the fact that there's the two sides of giving. It's the gift giving. There's a joy in it and a pleasure in it that we all take away from it, as well as the receiving end of it. People, of course, enjoy getting things, but don't underestimate how fulfilling it is for you to give.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always did too. I'm the same way. I love to give stuff to people because I don't just, I generally try to find something that the person will really, something that'll really speak to them,
Mm-hmm.
and not just, like, oh, here's this. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's plenty of that too, but I always try to find at least, one or two things that are really kind of off the radar,
Mm-hmm.
So.
Exactly. So how about you, Brian? How's your week been?
Overall, pretty decent. My antidepressant got increased. The dose I'm on got doubled.
Good.
And
wow.
I went from 10 to 20, which I don't think is normal. I think they usually step you up 5 at a time. But I think he was convinced that that I needed it. So, and I think he's right. It's weird. I don't feel all that. I've only been taking it for 4 days at the higher dose. So I don't really feel that much different at this point. Other than it seems that it's a little easier for me to get to sleep. Like I've been able to actually fall asleep a little easier the last few nights. So that is always a welcome change for me,
Sure.
But I don't know. Like otherwise, I feel like there's a little less noise in my head. But it's still early, like the dose can take, could take a little bit for my body to really adjust to, how it is.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's luckily, no negative side effects, no breaking out in hives or, any of that garbage. So.
No hives.
Yeah. No horrible dreams or anything like that. And, so yeah, that's, hopefully it's a step in the right way. I can't wait till after the first of the year when I can finally go back to therapy. 'Cause I think, up in the medicine and then getting back into therapy, I think will really kind of help me, start the new year. 'Cause it's, I can tell there's such a difference since I haven't been in there,
Yeah, sure.
That there's just such it's so weird. The best way I can describe it almost is it's almost like you get addicted to the therapy a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like that relief that comes afterwards, like, it's coming and you just can't, you almost can't wait until you hit that fix basically. And then, you're good for a while. Mm-hmm. And then it gets to a point you can actually feel yourself wanting to go to therapy again because you want to, get that out of you again. I don't know. Have you had anything like that with like your group stuff, Henno, where you kind of feel that way? I don't mean it in necessarily an addiction standpoint, but just, to where there's kind of a build up and payoff essentially.
Yeah. It's like craving that, you've got that opportunity for some catharsis,
Mm-hmm.
But it really does come back to where you and I have talked about finding joy in growth and self-introspective and discovery. There's a rush to it.
Yeah.
There's really something that even the little bit of anxiety that comes along with it, when you walk away from it and you feel good, and you might feel a little bit of, I know for myself, I used to feel a little, opening myself up felt shameful to me.
Yeah.
Like it left me with this weird feeling I couldn't describe. And one day it hit me, and that it's shame.
Yeah.
It's that it's like literally being naked in front of somebody. You walk away feeling a little weird, but then you feel good because you did something you wouldn't ordinarily do. And I think that's the part of it that is addictive. And I compare it addictive like a runner's high is addictive.
Yeah, that's what I didn't want to, because I never want to, I don't want to put it in the same level as, alcohol or drug type addictions. I don't want to put it there, but yeah, exactly.
It's still positive. It's positive reinforcement.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
What's odd though is that it's associated with behaviors or feelings that aren't necessarily we think of positive. It's not joy from something just being purely joyful. It's joy from sometimes a release of something that could be even painful.
Yeah, definitely. Yep.
But it's growth and those little victories. And I know exactly what you're talking about. And I can imagine that when you've had that and then you go through a period and you're not getting it and you're still kind of aware of like, I'm really missing this.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah, it really is. Like I can feel myself like I can't wait to get back in there to do that again. And part of it's because I felt like I was doing well. Like I felt like I was on the right path a little bit, because I kept getting a good feeling coming out of there. Cause in my head, basically the way I see therapy is I'm going to keep doing it until I don't get that feeling when I walk out of there. Like if I don't feel like I've moved forward or it's been cathartic in my head, that's when it's like, okay, maybe either it's time to shift the strategy or I'm done. Like, and I don't mean that in like I'll quit, but it's more of a like this is taking me kind of as far as it's going to go. Like,
that's it.
And that's in my head. That's the marker. When I hit that, then it's time to talk with the therapist and say, hey, I don't think this is doing it, or she does, because, there is potential for that, for her to say, I really don't, I don't see that you're getting much out of this or something, So yeah, like I said, it's so funny because it's like for me, so many people are looking forward to Christmas. I'm looking forward to January 1st because really that's going to be my best Christmas gift.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's the ability to get back into therapy because when I've really kind of hit low points, it's so nice to have that, So, yeah.
And now you've got that straightened out with your insurance, so how many sessions you can have. And
so we'll plan it better now, going forward. So, because obviously I don't want to run into that problem again.
Yeah.
So,
sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. And then my week's been going really well. I'm unfortunately starting to gain weight because everybody at work is bringing all their goodies in.
Of course, yeah.
Oh God, yep.
Yep, and my drivers' wives are making all sorts of goodies for everybody.
Well, it's like my doctor, when I was in there this week, he's telling me to cut back on my sugar and carbs. And he goes, I know. He's like, it's the wrong time of year for me to be telling you that. And he's like, you don't have to be perfect. Just try, and that's so important saying it that way, cause most people are gonna, as soon as people are told stuff, they tend to go right to an extreme. Like, oh, I have to cut all of it or I have to be drastic about it. And he was like, you don't have to be perfect. Just, maybe don't go for thirds on different stuff.
Well, actually, that's perfect because that kind of leads us into a little bit of what we're talking about today, which is be flexible. When I was thinking about my weight, and I've been a yo-yo dieter and a fluctuating weight person for over 20 years, and probably close to about 25 years since I was early teens. I've struggled with weight, and I've learned a whole bunch. So I have a ton of knowledge about weight loss and how to lose weight in, all of the stuff that's out there and stuff. But the thing with all that knowledge, where I struggle the most is I'm not flexible enough to allow myself to make the errors, to get back on the horse, to not be super, as I like to go 100% like you were saying, Brian, like what the doctor said, you have a tendency to go real strict with yourself and you can't maintain.
Well, that's what so many people do. They go on a diet, they completely will cut out X or Y, and then they don't hit that goal because a lot of times they've set their goals way too lofty. And then they immediately, are just like, meh, or they'll fall off because, they're like me. I get told by my doctor to cut back on this stuff. So somebody's like, well, I'm going to go ketogenic or whatever, and then they screw up. Like they have a bad weekend and then they just never go back on it. It's certain things like that. Like you're saying, it's like without that flexibility to go to really forgive yourself, just, say, hey, today didn't work out. Tomorrow I'm back after it. Tony, my buddy Tony, or our friend Tony, he's just mine. My co-host on Salty Language eats I think he pretty much does keto, whatever, however you say it, stuff. And he went to Florida over Thanksgiving and just made a pig of himself. He talks about it on our episode, just how he was eating bread stuff and all these things that he wouldn't normally eat. But he was like Monday, boom, right back to it. Just, right back after it. And, he's got a willpower I don't have, but it's still the idea that that's really, he gives himself that flexibility that it's like, hey, you know what? I enjoyed myself. Okay. Time to do the work again. And,
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, weight is just one area. I mean, so often we get so inflexible. As I referred to it earlier, sometimes you got to be the rubber, not the glue.
Yeah.
We get stuck. We become the glue and we get stuck in place and we get stuck in our lives and we get stuck and we stop thinking about choices that we're making and start letting life kind of dictate what we do around us. And keeps going back to that C word, that choice word, making active choices in our lives and deciding I'm going to do this. I'm not going to let life happen and just stand by and let life happen around me. I'm going to be flexible and make active choices and take part in it versus letting it just slide by.
Yeah.
So
one thing, it's kind of interesting you're bringing this up right now because holidays can be a time where we become very inflexible because there's ritual involved.
That's true.
Oh,
I didn't think about it till just now. I mean, we're talking about the all right, all of a sudden there's, like today it's one of our insurance people or investors. She comes in and usually brings a bag of little candies. Well, like Halloween candies. Well, today she brought in a box of these cookies and they were unreal. Like I was like, whatever, little cookie. Who cares? And then I went and tried one, and it was like, holy Hannah!
Yeah.
I'm like, I'll take another one. I mean, they were so good, right? And so, all right, there's a left hook. There's something that's out of the blue, kind of thing. But this time of year, when it comes to how we set up a Christmas tree, or how we do this on this day, or we do this on this day, we can become very inflexible, and it can cause stress with our families. And I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Where all of a sudden it's like, yeah, but every year we do this on this day.
Yeah.
Well, I can't.
It can cause stress internally too because of stuff like, like me. Here's another great example. Is like if I go into this season thinking, okay, I need to cut back. Like cut back on the cookies and all the treats and stuff that are made through this time, and be careful when I'm eating through the holidays. Cause, my family, a lot of the stuff tends to be carb type stuff. So, I need to go easy on this stuff. And in my head, it can be like, yeah, but it's tradition. It's, like I'm fighting that same kind of wall. Not to mention, like, as you were just saying, if you don't eat something that someone brings, sometimes there can be hurt feelings like, oh, well, it's not good, or, oh, you don't like it anymore, so I feel like an internal pressure to eat stuff based on that a little bit too. So, this is all stuff put on me. This isn't that they will, because if I say, hey, my doctor told me whatever, they'll all understand. But in my head, the way that tends to play out first is if I don't eat this, they'll be upset because they'll think I'm refusing what they made.
I believe that's on your worksheet.
Oh, I know. That's what I said. I said immediately. I said that's how it plays in my head. And yep, exactly.
Yep. And that's, I'm just having a conversation with a younger woman I work with. First time, long-term relationship that she's had. And this is the first holiday that they've had to go through the whole motion of,
oh boy,
who do we go? Whose houses do we go to? Yep. When do we go? Because everybody's family has their traditions. We always serve at this time.
Yep.
We always serve at this time. So if there's conflicts, what do? Do you separate?
Yeah.
Do you skip one? Do you go to another? Do you, are you going to be playing favorites? You're going to hurt feelings because that's just a natural.
Yeah. Or do you alternate years or whatever? Yeah, exactly. You have to work all that out. And that can cause a ton of stress between a couple, let alone with their family. Because if hey, we're not coming this year because we're going to this person's family instead, there can be, hurt feelings and whatnot. But again, you have to be careful of that because, again, you're mind reading and projecting, so. Exactly.
And we talked about it just the other day. We were talking about it because, I've been in, a long-term relationship before I got married. And, so I've spent the last, 15, 20 years in relationships. And so I've kind of have some experience with working it all out because I have two families on my one side. I come from a divorced family. So I have two families, and then now I have my husband's family. So 3 families I'm trying to juggle. And everybody wants to see us because, quite frankly, I'm just that amazing that everyone wants to get a piece of me.
Hey, we know who you are.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know who I am? Everybody wants to see me. Duh. Yeah. No, that aside, of course, everyone wants to see you because they never get a chance to see you during the year. Mm-hmm. It's tough. It's tough to make everyone happy.
Yeah.
And you can't.
Well, I was just going to say, and your goal really shouldn't be to make everybody else happy. It's, do what makes you comfortable and what makes you feel, well, not even just comfortable. Cause again, you can always argue that, well, you should push yourself outside your comfort zone, and we'll get into that on another show. But, it's, if you're living for other people, most of the time to do that, you end up sacrificing your contentment and your well-being, and it's not worth it. Like I said, last year, I think it was, or no, this past, what was it, Easter or whatever it was? I remember, or it was the Thanksgiving before, whatever it was. I remember talking with my therapist about how there was supposed to be a lot of people at my family. I think it was Thanksgiving because there was supposed to be a lot of people there, and I just said no. I just was like, I'm not going to go because it's too many people. I'm not going to be comfortable and whatever. And it was one of the most freeing things I've ever done. I didn't play any games with it. It was just straight up was like, hey, I'm not going to be there. Just,
there's a lot of freedom for other people too. Yeah. What you don't realize by not giving definitive answers, not making definitive decisions, is that you're pretty much putting everyone on the hook too. Yeah. When you make a definitive decision, you're like, you know what? I'm sorry, but we cannot go to this. We have to go here. Next year we will switch it up, and we'll go and we'll have to skip that one. Done. All of a sudden, it becomes so much smoother. Yeah, you're still going to have some hurt feelings. You're going to have some discussion or whatever. But if you're firm and you're like, you know what? I'm going to be glue in this situation. This is what we are doing, period.
Yeah.
Then it'll start going smoothly again. Mm-hmm. But on the flip side, there's times when you need to be that rubber and you need to be that flexibility, have that flexibility and that bounce around a little bit. It's like, you know what? I tell you what, we really, really want to see you guys. So why don't they're having dinner at 1? Why don't we have dinner at 5?
Yeah.
That'll give you plenty of time to have dinner and eat and relax, and then we'll just move it to 5 this year.
And that's what my siblings, because all my brothers and sisters are half brothers and sisters. They're all from different my parents' previous marriages, and on my mom's the kids from my mom, their dad moved their family thing to like 5 or so. And on these days, and what they do is like on Thanksgiving, they just have like sandwiches or leftover kind of thing at 5 o'clock. Mm-hmm. Like they go ahead and eat or whatever, but they just have, stuff. And they have that at 5 o'clock. That way it's low stress because they know it's everyone's their second visit of the day. Nobody has to, you don't have to worry about cooking a bunch. And there's not, there's no hurt feelings because nobody's hungry.
Yeah.
Cause it's silly to cook a whole big meal when everyone's still full from the first meal that they ate, but when they did that, it works out great. Cause my mom's side, we eat at 1 or 2, something like that. And then my brother and sisters go over to, their dad's house later on. So it works out great for everybody, Yeah.
And so it's finding those times and identifying the difference. There's a great article that I have that's called 6 Ways to Maintain Your Mental Flexibility. Learn to roll with the punches and dodge life's wrenches. When I hear that, dodge life's wrenches, I just think of a video game where like the bad guys just tossing wrenches at you and you have to jump and dive around them.
I think of dodgeball because there's that line from Dodgeball. It says if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. So that's
there you go.
Yeah.
Yep, my husband just made the same comment.
Yeah,
like,
that's what I was going to say. I think a lot of people would think of that because it's one of the most quoted like lines from like people will replace wrench with whatever, So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, the article states when you first start making room for healthy habits in your busy life, being a stickler can be beneficial. Setting a workout schedule, planning your meals in advance, saying no to things that get in the way of your goals. Without giving yourself some rules and being a little inflexible at the beginning, you'll be likely to fall off the wagon much more quickly, which is true. I can see that. But as you build your habits, you'll eventually discover that things don't always go according to your plan. There will undoubtedly be you know what I'm saying, folks.
Undoubtedly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Be road bumps, an unexpectedly long work day, detours, your favorite body sculpting class gets canceled, and setbacks. Birthday cake! If you rigidly follow your plan instead of being a little flexible once in a while, you can do more harm than good. Experts in behavioral science view mental flexibility not as a personality trait or a state of mind, but as a set of behaviors that can be changed. Everyone is flexible about some things and inflexible about others. When you think about flexibility as something I do and not who I am, you will start to realize that you can make lasting positive changes that may open up opportunities for some relaxation, laughter, and joy amid the daily grind. If you feel like you've become a bit of a stickler about strict schedules, perfect plans, it may be time to loosen up and become more flexible.
This all makes sense too because, being inflexible is, it's being controlling. Everything has to go this way because I want it to go this way, or it always goes this way, so it has to keep going this way. And when you let go of it and just kind of roll with what life throws in front. Again, if you're on a diet and this time of year somebody brings in cookies, if you eat all the cookies, yeah, that's an issue. But have a cookie if you want one cookie or whatever. Just allow yourself to do that and then move on. Don't do something and beat yourself up. But, you know, because being inflexible, like in diets and stuff, I know, you know, it's not like it's new information, but it's like in diets, you know, people, they say it all the time. It's like when you tell yourself no long enough, usually what happens is there's like a rebound. Or a boomerang effect. Like no, then you eat all the things, you know, and so
right.
Just, you know, let yourself have a taste here and there and stuff like that. You know, there's sometimes you have to, you know, like my nephew had bypass surgery, you know, stomach bypass surgery. When you have that, you have to tell yourself no on certain things, you know, like theirs are different, but, you know, a lot of stuff in life is
consequences.
Just, yeah, that's true too. I mean, you know it, like me, if I eat a bunch of pizza, I get heartburn. Does it stop me from eating a bunch of pizza? Nope. But I know I'm going to get heartburn. I don't ask anyone to feel bad for me when I get it because I know I did it to myself, you know?
Yeah. It's understanding the choices that we make and the consequences of those choices. And I think that's part of this, the understanding when you can be flexible and when not to be flexible is when you're okay with the consequences.
Right.
It's like, if I'm flexible here, what are the if I eat this cookie, what are my consequences?
Yeah.
I eat this cookie, my consequences, I'm going to have to work out just a little bit longer, maybe extra 5-10 minutes of workout.
Yeah.
Or it's going to add to the calorie count. So I either have to give up something somewhere or work out a little bit more.
Yeah.
To maintain. Otherwise I'll start gaining weight.
I'll tell you one of the phrases I'm getting so tired of hearing from people is my trainer's going to kill me. Like if you tell them you have a cookie and it's like, I understand because the trainer's trying to do the best job they can. They're trying to get you as healthy as they can get you, whatnot. But it's like, just stop it. Stop trying to put it on the trainer, first of all. You know, it's like,
that's the biggest issue.
It's like, don't
put it on them.
Yeah, accountability first. But at the same time, it's like, look, you know, whatever. I mean, you know, if you eat that cookie and you're trying to lose weight, it's moving the wrong way. You know, it's not helping you because it's generally not nutritionally helping you with the, you know, fat burning process or whatever. But it's like, I don't know. You know, like I said, but if that's the only reason you're not going to have a cookie, that's not going to work in the long run. You know, like you need to set yourself up to be better, you know, to handle that better.
Now, the first step the first tip it talks about is accept your behavioral history. People often talk about type A characteristics as if they're inherently personality traits, but most people didn't become inflexible and perfectionist overnight. Which is true. The science of behavior holds that we will continue doing those things that get recognized, revered, and rewarded. The reason you've developed so many take-charge tendencies is because throughout your life, you received lots of powerful praise for taking the reins. So you have to, you know, and I get that. It's like you have to accept that these behaviors are ingrained in you.
Yeah. Well,
over years.
Part of it too is that becoming flexible, like, you know, with holiday stuff can be, it can be taken as a shot to the ego by a lot of people. And you know, like, oh, who's having the Christmas get together? You have 3 people that all want to have it. You know, because basically when you boil it all down to it, they want the praise, you know, so, or they want to control what happens basically. It's one of the, you know, someone in that, so it's like, then you have 3 people basically warring with each other over who should have it or whatever, or, you know, who's making what at a family dinner, you know, well, I make this, well, I make it really good to, you know, and then you have arguments or, you know, instead of somebody else just going, well, you know what, I also make this. So you make that, I'll just make something, you know, and just picking an easier choice. You know, and I've seen that so many times in so many families over the years, you know, like I said, the get together place or who's making what or just whatever, you know, like that. Just people can't put their egos aside and that leads to inflexibility because they have to control it. You know, like it. So, sorry, I started laughing because Jen's cat just walked up behind her on the couch, and I thought he was going to sit behind you again.
Yes, folks. Last episode, my cat was sitting behind me, and the way he was sitting, gave me cat ears.
Yeah.
So Hanno and Brian had to hold it together while I had kitty cat ears the entire episode.
Yep.
Yes, Frankie likes to be fun.
That last part reminds me of that idea that our character defects can be character assets.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And how that character asset became a character defect. There was a reason why, like it says, you in a room, you're the first person to step up and be leader. And in the right room, people appreciate it. And if you find yourself being that person all the time, you start automatically taking that role over and over again because you were given an opportunity to practice it. Mm-hmm. And then maybe at some point it got to the point where you had to be the leader. Yeah. And now you've gone to the point where maybe this is becoming a defect. Well, guess what it takes to get back to, backing off on that practice. Yeah. But that idea that these things, I have an ability at work to really focus on something and give it my attention and do a really good job. I can also over-focus on something to the detriment of everything else around me. Mm-hmm. I can get hyper-focused. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. The one thing that is a huge benefit, is when they need me to really, hey, jump on this and make it happen. Okay, I'm going to jump on it and make it happen. It's the same exact set of skill set. It's the same skill set that gets me lost in something for days. Yeah.
Yes.
And it's learning to discern one from the other. Where
is it necessary? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And is this serving me or is it not serving me?
Right.
Mm. Well, in the next step it talks about is identify places where you can compromise. Perhaps you're always the first to speak your mind in important meetings, or you have a habit of jumping to point out grammatical errors in company communications. Maybe you're that parent on the field making playbook suggestions to your child's soccer coach while the other parents simply cheer from the bleachers. None of these habits are inherently wrong in any of themselves, but there's a fine line between being assertive and being domineering. In order to become more flexible, it helps to first recognize and record situations where you most frequently try to steer the ship. Observing your own inflexible behavior lets you notice these situations when you could sometimes stand back a bit and let others take the lead. At this point, you're not trying to change your behavior. You're simply becoming aware of the points in your day when you could be apt to be less rigid. Jot down these situations for further reference.
Real quick, there's actually a flip side to this too, to where you can be totally inflexible and not be the person who steps up to lead. You could be that person who never steps up to lead, and that's your role. You never raise your hand because, that's not what you do. Somebody else wants to do it. I'll just let them. And you justify it in those things, or I don't want the responsibility kind of a thing. So you realize that over time that every time there's a group project, you're never the lead on it because you just don't want to be, so you can fall the opposite way and be just as inflexible, to where if someone's like, hey, how about you lead? And you're like, nah, and you'll fight against leading at that point. So, also be careful you don't go that way, because there are a lot of people that'll do that too. I was one of those in school. Whenever there were group projects, I never volunteered to lead. And the reason I didn't was because I know in school groups, there's always people who work harder than the others. And I was always one of the ones that worked harder. So I was like, well, I'm not going to lead too. Which is weird that on one end I'm willing to put all the work in, but I'm not willing to, kind of control
the work you're going to do.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not going to try to control the group either. So.
Yeah. And I have a tendency to be the controller that, I always step up to be the one to talk first and answer questions and stuff. I mean, the big thing that I have to keep in mind is that I have this innate fear that if I don't answer the question, people are going to assume I don't know it. Mm-hmm. And I guess that fear of being under-acknowledged, underappreciated is ingrained in me, and I have to work against that fear.
Well, that's an easy fear. Like, if you think about that, that probably can easily go to, like, grade school. Teacher asks a question, certain kids raise their hand, the others don't. How many times do you see the teacher call on a kid whose hand isn't up? It happens a lot.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to, either they know a kid knows the answer and just won't raise their hand, or they're trying to catch the kids who didn't do their homework or whatever it is, or you know, whatever their reasoning is. And, you know, so it's like, if I put my hand up, I know the answer, you know, kind of a thing. Like you know, and if I don't put it up, and it's just a confidence thing most of the time. You know, a lot of the kids know the answers, and just, like me, I just never wanted to be called on. I didn't like being called on. I never wanted to have to go work on the board, you know, that kind of stuff, because of my social anxieties. But you know, it's funny though, because it does reinforce that thought process that you have.
Yeah.
You know, basically, if you don't raise your hand, you don't know the answer. That's the bare bones interpretation of when someone says, okay, blah, blah, blah. And all the people who know, if they put their hand up, that means all the ones who don't, you know? So.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's tough, because it's a constant struggle for me to recognize and try to work towards a quiet confidence.
Yeah.
Is always the big thing, is work towards a quiet confidence. I can be confident in my knowledge and my skills and myself. I don't have to broadcast it to the world for them to know it. You know, I can be confident in me knowing it.
Yeah.
So it's tough. Definitely identifying where we can do better is a huge step.
Especially with where you've got, like they mentioned, that some various behaviors. Like, I guarantee if you tend to do a certain behavior over and over again, somebody's mentioned it to you.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Positive reinforcement.
Yep.
Like they're talking about the person that's constantly, you know, correcting the grammar. You know, there's and I used to be this guy. I would correct people how they pronounced words.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked about this on a lot of podcasts, because it was a great place for me to learn this, you know, to find some compromise.
I'm still bad at it, but I'm trying to get better about it.
It's a great place to do it. And also in meetings, the person that always, you know, has to correct this, or, you know, there's all of these, there's these various places, and I guarantee somebody's mentioned it to you. Mm-hmm. Either, you know, within the last year or so, maybe it was 10 years ago, maybe it was even longer than that. Who knows? But somebody, you know, some ex-girlfriend of yours was like, you know, I hate it when you do this.
Yeah.
And what have you done? You've never changed it.
Yeah.
Because you're like, why should I?
Mm-hmm. Well, if nothing else, you go, I'm right. Why should I change?
That's
that's a big one.
Yeah. Yep. I'm saying that from my own experience. Like, that's how I looked at it, is I'm right. So why are you, you know, like, don't yell at me for, you know, you're the one who doesn't know how to say, and it isn't so much with pronunciations as much as it is like spelling. You know, those ones were the ones where I usually would point stuff out. Pronouncing things, unless there's certain words, you know, Jen knows what I'm talking about, but, you know, like the people who say, you know, espresso and, you know, especially, or those kind of things. Those are the ones I cannot tolerate it. And even now I've tried to get better about it, and I cannot.
those are my compromise words.
Yeah.
Now, those are the ones where especially, you know, and, what's the one that's famous on podcasts? Supposedly.
Yeah.
Supposedly.
And I just let those go now. It's not, there's other ones. There's times that you can come across as actually quite useful.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when somebody knows that you tend to know the pronunciation of words, and they're struggling with something, and they actually look at you for help.
A great example is, I have a brother who's hearing impaired. Like, he wears a hearing aid, right? So he doesn't hear words right a lot of times. So he'll ask me, how do I pronounce this? You know?
Yep.
Or if he says it, if I correct him, he knows I'm not doing it to be a jerk. I'm doing it because,
Exactly.
and he doesn't want to mispronounce things. He wants to say them right. So, you know, like, I've helped him a lot over the years because he's, like I said, there's a lot of words, and some of them, the part that makes me feel like a jerk is sometimes when he says stuff, it's so funny how he'll mispronounce things sometimes, you know, but he laughs at it too, you know, so it's not like I'm not like giving him crap about it for like months and months usually, but, you know, like in that situation, it's received in the way that it's received in the way I really want it to be received all the time.
Exactly. That's
You know?
why you started doing it to begin with.
Yep.
Yeah,
But it became
it's helpful of use.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so funny you brought that up because I just had a friend of mine talk about this in group, was this idea that I'm being of service to others by helping them with everything.
Right.
Oh, you know, if you did it this way.
Yep.
Oh, if you did it this way, it's unsolicited advice. And he was like, but for some reason they didn't want my help. Here, I'm being of service to you.
Yeah.
Why are you retaliating against me? You know, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And that's what it is, because it started with good intention.
Yeah, it really does. I don't mean it to be a jerk. I really want people to, and the reason, and I can tell you this, the thing is, my thinking on it has always been that whenever you can pronounce things right, you should, essentially, because it gives off an air of ignorance if you don't. That's the way I've always kind of seen it interpreted. When you go around somebody and they mispronounce words left and right, a great example is this. The stereotype for rednecks. Okay? Mm-hmm. People don't think of rednecks in the way words are pronounced, you know, by rednecks. They don't think of that in that's an intelligent person manner, you know? So that's kind of what it is for me, is I wanted to speak well because it was seen as intelligent, you know, and, you know, ultimately it's become a need to be right. You know, it didn't start that way, but over time, that's what it becomes. Yeah. As you were saying a few minutes ago, I know a good character trait became a bad character trait, you know,
and that's why it's worth finding that compromise where you're going to let some things, you know, I don't need to do this all the time. I don't need to do this. I don't need to do this all the time, because when you finally back off, and my experience has been is when I finally backed off, that was when the time that people felt comfortable to now come up and ask me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I was always the jerk, no one's going to want to ask me anything. They don't want my help.
Yeah.
They don't. And if I can compromise and pull back a little bit, I open myself up to the possibility of having somebody actually come to me because I am useful.
You know what happens is, have you guys
desire to be built?
Yeah. Have you guys ever seen the sketch on Saturday Night Live where I think it was Jimmy Fallon was the IT guy? And when they would call him in, he'd always just give them so much snark. Because, like, he'd be like, well, just do this. And they'd go to do it, and they couldn't, and he's like, just get out of the way. And he'd sit down, and he'd, like, look at him with disgust as he would just do the most basic functions, you know? And I think we talked about that, actually, Heno, didn't we? About computers? Was it you and...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was somebody... Your boss or something like that didn't know computers.
It was me, yep.
But that's what it ends up being, is nobody wants to call that guy because that guy is a jerk about being right. And, you know, whereas if he came in, was super nice, just walked him through it, even though he's done it a million times and, you know, walked through have you tried turning it off and turning it back on again? You know, even if they've done that a million times that day, but they're still nice about it. People will keep asking for help, but when they get the other, they shut it off. And in the end, you end up working against yourself, because if your goal was to help people not sound like they don't know what they're talking about, now they're going to double down on not asking you, you know? So in the end, you push them away by doing it. So it's not to mention, you really don't know, what kind of disability somebody could have. Like my brother, you know, like I said, or something. Maybe they don't hear quite right, and maybe they, you know, or something else, or maybe their brain doesn't process stuff, or when they're reading, maybe they're dyslexic or what have you, you know. So there's so many reasons not to, because really what you're doing is putting yourself out there to be a jerk. The risk of that versus the help is so much higher, you know?
Right. Well, the next step that it talks about is set small goals for mental stretching. So, folks, now that we've understood that we need to be more flexible, we've recognized and identified places where we should try to be more flexible. Now we have to set some small goals for mental stretching. So, once you've spent some time observing and tracking your inflexible behaviors, and you started to practice being flexible in certain situations throughout your day, the next step is to set small goals for mental stretching. Great runners set weekly mileage goals when they're training for a marathon. Successful dieters set reasonable targets for steady weight loss. If you want to keep up your motivation and see change quickly, choose how many times you'll be flexible throughout the day or week. Write down your goal and post it where you can see it. How will you know whether your habits are really improving? Make sure you track your practice. Jot it down on your planner, text or email yourself a quick note, make a chart and stick it on the fridge. As you see your behaviors moving towards the goal line each week, you'll know that you're moving towards lasting change. I don't know about this one. What do you guys think?
Well, Heno just said a little bit ago that the way you become a certain way is practice, and that's exactly what that said. So, you know.
And it seems like tackling flexibility with inflexible action.
Well,
like your chart and making sure you have this number and then,
Well, it depends too, because I mean, really if you set your flexibility chart at 1, there's probably an opportunity every day you could hit that goal,
Right.
But if you set it again, if you set it at like, okay, 50 times today, I'm going to be more flexible. It's like, it's going to be really difficult, so if it's reasonable, I think it's achievable, but in the end, what it has to be really is, even though you're right, it is attacking inflexibility with flexibility with inflexibility. I guess the only way you could combat that would be to be flexible about how hard you are on yourself if you don't hit your goal, Yeah.
It's
like there are a lot of people who have that, like, I'm going to do one nice thing for somebody every day, or I'm going to do 2 nice things, like those kind of goals, and if you don't hit them, it's like, what, if you hit that 6 days out of the week or 4 days out of the week, I mean, that's a pretty good number to, so I think if you're forgiving of yourself, if you don't hit those things,
Yep. And it does say, the next one says, reward your choice to retreat. So, sometimes it can just be really, really hard. Like in the situation that they're talking about is someone who's really, really busy, who has a very busy family, and they're managing laundry, planning, creating employee schedules, packing lunches, following up on emails, etc. So a very busy person trying to handle all this stuff at once backs off and becomes more flexible, but things aren't being done exactly to the T the way they would want them to be done.
Yeah.
They mention, make sure that you give yourself something else to help motivate you to mellow out. So back massages, nights at theater, bouquets of fresh cut flowers. Use these things as incentives to yourself that, what? Yes, the laundry's not folded perfectly, but that's okay. I'm going to buy myself some flowers.
Yeah. Well,
I liked in there where they talked about the person sitting in the car, with their daughter driving and backseat driving, that kind of thing. And identifying that as one of the, all right, so this is one of my locations where I tend to be, where I have this behavior. And where I'm always making comments and I'm like this. Okay, here's my place where I've identified this, because this is a part that I liked about it in this article. It talks about skills that are always useful for shifting our behavior patterns is to pay attention, identify. Okay, now target. Okay, so and don't just target. Give yourself a reward for doing it. Okay, I am going to keep my mouth shut this entire drive. Okay, and if I do this is what I'm going to do for myself.
Exactly.
There's nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with that, because the point of that is to just see if you can even get through it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get through it and you felt kind of good about it and you go, yeah, I'm getting a reward, then you'll try it again.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, in that particular circumstance, if you're going if you know you're a backseat driver and you know you're going on a drive and you want to keep your mouth shut, treat yourself. Get yourself a cappuccino or your favorite drink. Then you can drink that instead of commenting,
Yeah, like every time, instead of making a comment, you just take a sip, see how long it lasts.
Exactly. You just sip your drink.
Yeah.
I had this one, this was a long time ago. It was probably about 15 years ago. And I went snowboarding. It was actually with Neil. And I had my other good friend Lauren with me. And we were around some acquaintances and also strangers. And we were sitting in this booth at this cheesy casino. And I think it was breakfast. And, everyone's got a little bit of a hangover, and we're just kicking back. And the topic came up with gun control. And back then, I mean, I was uber political. And there was not a debate that I would not dive into head first.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I loved it. It was like, I'm already pretty passionate, but it was, I was at a different level back then.
Sure.
And I just made the decision that I wasn't going to say anything. I wasn't going to engage. There was no point in it.
Yep.
Let people say what they have to say. I don't need to say that they're wrong. I don't need to find, where their logic has failed them. And I just sat there, and I was just having my food and enjoying the conversation, listening. And the look on Neil and Lauren's faces, like I could feel Lauren staring at me because she was shocked. She was just like, what are you doing? You're not jumping in on this. And like Neil kept looking at me, and and afterwards we talked about it a little bit. And I said, I felt really good.
Yeah, it does.
It felt really good.
I made that same
and
effort a few years ago. And I said that politically, I'm not going to engage people anymore. I'll have a conversation, with people at times, but I'm not jumping into arguments, debates, all this stuff. And ever since I did that, I feel so much better going through so much of it, because I still read up, I still look at stuff, but I'm not arguing with people to where really most of those arguments, neither side's changing an opinion. You're just really arguing to argue. And it just wasn't worth it to me anymore. And ever since then, like you just said, that was such a good feeling. I just rather have that feeling than the way I feel after I get into those arguments. Cause even if I feel like I'm right, in the end, you don't really feel that you won or changed someone's opinion. So to me, there was no win in it, So.
Well, now that we've gotten to this point, now we get to learn that failure is functional.
Mm-hmm.
Becoming more flexible is a great wellness goal, especially for busy people who often shoulder a heavy load. It takes time to learn and to let go and to share some of your burdens with others. As you attempt more flexible actions each day, notice some of the stress being lifted from your life. Sure, there will be days when the pesky perfectionism bug comes back to sting you. Perhaps you'll fall back into control when preparing an important work project or planning a family vacation. When you fail to be flexible, you can come to realize your most menacing triggers. The next time you're faced with a similar situation, you can try to manipulate the circumstances in your favor. Just remember that falling into inflexible habits for a little while is okay. Mm-hmm. Because now you've got the strategies to go back and stretch those mental muscles. So It's okay not to be perfect, folks.
Right. Well, that's the thing. Perfectionists cannot handle flexibility. Mm-hmm. They want it this way, this way. It's got to be how it was planned out or how they see it going out or whatever. So it's a really tough thing to fight against, though. I mean, man, it's like Heno said, it's like, because once you start getting positive reinforcement for that behavior, in your head it becomes well, it's not broke, so why fix it? I keep getting promoted because I take initiative, I come in, I do this. So, well, I'm going to keep doing that because in my head, well, I'm going to keep getting promoted. Meanwhile, you don't know what kind of, what kind of path of destruction you're leaving behind you, So,
Exactly.
And eventually it won't work anymore,
Yeah. That's so true.
Eventually you'll run up against somebody who is just as inflexible, and it will create conflict.
Yeah.
Or there has to be
worse.
Or worse. Yep.
And here's the truth. Most of us fall somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Sure.
We really, like, the three of us would not be having this conversation if one of us was that extreme, that dominant in conversation. And that was one of my, somebody said this to me one time, is that I dominate conversation, and it just rang in my head like someone just smacked a bell, because it was just like, whoa, I do. And at the time I didn't know how to change that.
Yeah.
And now I've learned, and it's using these little techniques that we're talking about. And one of them also is to, because most of us sit somewhere in that middle ground. Think about those people that that are those extremes.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's a motivator to not go there.
Right.
Learn from others. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Cause you don't want to be that person who's nothing but flexible, like you're like, show a backbone, like you're, those kind of things. It's stand for something. Yeah. Pick a side. Yeah, exactly. And then you get the other people that it's like, all right, ease up, man. Not everyone's going to agree with you, You're right. You don't want to be either one.
Progress, not perfection.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Progress, not perfection. Progress, not perfection. Progress does not mean that we don't have back steps.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It just means that we have some forward steps too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. I always love, like, in pro football, my favorite player ever was Barry Sanders. He was a running back for the Detroit Lions. And he is regarded as one of the best running backs to ever play the game, right? Not just numbers wise, but just talent. Like, you could just watch him and be amazed by his ability to, like, the play would be designed to go to the right, and by the end of the play, he would have cut back across the field to the left. Like, ran all the way from almost one sideline, turned around, cut back, and ran the other way. And he used to do this. Like, there were years he led the league in rushing and negative yards for a running back, which tells you how amazing the guy was. He actually removed numbers from his stats and still was the best guy in the league, right? Yeah. And I think that kind of meant that application works in life too, like, be that person who, when you start running to the right, if there's no hole to hit, well, let's cut back to the left and see if there's a hole to hit over here, And I think the more you do that, you adapt better. Your stress level's probably lower, and in the long run. And even with him, he would get tackled for 5-10 yard losses, but then on the next play, rip off a 60-yard run. He was that kind of guy. So in life's that way too. There's sometimes you get tackled for a 10-yard loss, but on the next play, maybe you're going to rip the 60-yard run off. And it's being flexible allows you to do that. If you're just that, I'm only going to run forward, head down, run forward. You might get where you want to go, but you're probably going to do it 1 or 2 yards at a time instead of, because you don't see other things. You just put your head down and hit where you're supposed to go, and between the two, being flexible allows you to potentially see opportunities, So there you go. There's my big sports metaphor.
Yeah. That was a great one, especially that last line. It's so true. Mm-hmm. That is one of the worst things about when we are glue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's so hard.
Yeah. And if anybody comes in your way or tries to change you, tries to move you, you just are stuck.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, no, I know I'm right. I know I'm going to do this. No,
right.
No.
It's like your goal is on the other side of a wall. Yeah. Your goal is on the other side of the wall. Instead of taking a hallway, you're trying to go through the wall, you know?
Yeah. People
well,
like,
it's
no,
also
there's a hole right here. I'm like, no,
Nope.
I've got this. I'm doing this.
Straight shot.
yeah, it's also like the thing where it's like, well, this is the way we've always done it.
Yes.
And that's something we hit at work all the time.
Yeah.
Now the opposite of it is my general manager who says that he always looks for a new way of doing things. I'm like, yeah, well, if something has worked for over 5 years, and in that time I've tried everything else, I'm going with the way we've always done it.
Right. Yeah.
There's the other extreme. It's like I'm not going to go out and try to do new things just for the sake of trying new things when something works perfectly fine.
Yeah.
True.
You know, so, and he's that other extreme where it gets annoying after a while. Yeah. It's like, oh, have you tried about, no, I haven't.
Yeah. It's like, look, I don't,
because every time I don't want to do it because every time we try something new, it doesn't work and we end up back where we started.
Exactly. And then you're doing it twice instead of once. You know? Yep. That's, it's the same way.
That idea of like, this is the way we've always done it. Or, and like with the holidays coming up, this is what I've always done on this day, or this is how I've always done that, or, you know, try something different. Try a different angle on it.
Yeah. Well, you know, look how many times, like, have you heard in your life, like, where someone will be like, yeah, you know, at Christmas this year, someone brought blank, you know, like, they brought a new kind of pie that nobody had really had, or it's made a little differently, and everyone's like, man, this is so good, or whatever, you know, and it's like, well, you know, you could have just brought the same exact things that every year, but somebody was like, you know what, I'm going to try something different here and bring, you know, a little difference, and maybe that becomes the new tradition. It's like, traditions are fine and all, but it's, I don't know, you know, there's also nothing wrong sometimes with, you know, mixing things up a little bit, because the problem is that I've always had with traditions is I didn't set that. Someone else did. So why can't I have the opportunity to influence a tradition myself? You know, and I don't think that's an unfair thing to look at, you know, because
tradition's another word for habit.
Yeah, it's, you know. Well, look how many people have switched to doing like deep fried turkey instead of making them in the ovens even, you know, just little stuff like that. That's the new tradition, is we're deep frying the turkey. And there's nothing wrong with that. You're not eliminating the history of because your grandma made an amazing turkey in the oven. It's like, well, if she's not around anymore, that tradition kind of died with her. Cause even if someone else uses the same recipe, it isn't going to be the same, you know?
Right.
There's just always, you know how it is. Like you could give 3 people the same recipe and just things taste a little different, you know? So I don't know. Tradition always bugs me. It's why, as much as I love baseball, I hate baseball, because baseball is all tradition based. Like they don't ever want to change anything because, well, we've been doing it this way for 100 years. It's like, that doesn't mean it was good. Also doesn't make it bad.
Yeah, they are changing. My husband just said that the All-Star game is no longer giving home field advantage.
Yeah, that was stupid anyway. An exhibition should never influence the World Series. But, you know.
Right.
That's a whole different podcast.
But with that, I think we're getting close to wrap up time. You guys got anything else on the topic? Nope, we're good?
Nope.
All right. Well, if you want to continue the conversation with me, you can reach me at Jen's Crazy Life on Twitter. That's Jen with a G. You can also reach us via email at thecrazylifepodcast@outlook.com, or you can reach us on our website at thecrazylifepodcast.weebly.com. How about you, Heno?
I do want to say thank you, Clint, for the great feedback that you've given us on the show. It's always appreciated, and it is awesome to see that. He said this week, he called out Brian and I and was like, you guys were great, and I love that. So I want to say thank you, and I want to say thank you to Brian, who does all the hard work and produces this podcast. And it's something that I know I haven't said, so I wanted to say thank you. And you can find me on Twitter at Ida Henno and Facebook Henno Heiter.
Awesome. And you, Brian?
Well, while we're throwing thank yous around and stuff, let's throw a thank you at Henno for the intro song, which if you haven't listened to it, you should definitely go check out because it's very relevant to the show and it's a good listen anyway. So definitely, if you scrub past that, go back and have a listen to it. Or if you haven't listened to it in a while, go back and listen to it again, just cause. So Henno, thanks for lending your talents to the show there as well as, co-hosting, and Jen, same to you for, approaching, starting the whole thing and being here when you, whenever it is you feel like it, I guess. I don't know. I'm kidding. I kid. You can also check the show out on Twitter to see when we post new episodes at the Crazy Life Pod. You can find me on Twitter at Stunami. The other podcast I'm on, Salty Language, which is very not safe for work, can be found at salty_language or at saltylanguage.com. The Crazy Life's Facebook group can be found at facebook.com/groups/Crazy Life Podcast. And there's a page on there that has a bunch of links to resources for mental health help, or crisis lines and that kind of thing. So if you ever need anything like that, hit the group up or, contact one of us and we can throw some links at you. We're part of the Tangentbound Network, which can be found at tangentboundnetwork.com. So, go have a look at that. Check out the other shows there. If you haven't already subscribed, please do that. And also, if you're on iTunes, please leave us a review. That helps us in the visibility when people search at the category that we're in. And I feel like I'm forgetting something. Oh, if you use Stitcher or other podcast apps, please use, if they have a like or a share button, please use those, because for the same reason, they make us more visible to new people looking for shows, and it's much appreciated. Also want to remind everybody that we're not doctors, trained therapists, or trained professionals. We're just three people sharing our experiences and opinions. And the show should not be seen as a replacement for therapy. If you need help or feel you need help, please seek out a medical professional or something, a support group or something to that effect. And if you're feeling suicidal in any stage of it, whether it's planning or the end stage, or I just read a story of someone that I follow on one of the social media platforms that she was cutting her arms and she was starting to have thoughts of cutting her wrists. And she said that there was this faint voice in her head that basically told her to call someone. And she called a friend, and her friend came over and got her and helped and got her to a hospital. And who knows, that may have saved her life just doing that. So if you're feeling that way, call a friend, call a crisis line, call 911, tell them you have a mental health emergency, or, if you have an insurance card, a lot of them have a mental health hotline or something. Definitely reach out. Please try not to be alone, and please don't act on those thoughts.
Absolutely. And, and thank you both for all of your efforts and time that you devote to the podcast. It's really appreciated. As I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, this is a labor of love, everyone. Brian, Henno, and myself, we all get a lot from the podcast, and we give to you, but we also receive in response. And so thank you for being a part of this. And as always, keep breathing and don't forget to wiggle those toes.